What's up, Ramblers? Your favorite CEO is back. And before we begin today's podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button to never miss an episode. And follow Assistance HQ and Offsource HQ across all platforms to stay up to date on the latest content, updates, and more. And remember, if you need a virtual assistant, visit us at offsource.tech. Now, before we begin, a word from our sponsor. Hey guys, welcome back to another wonderful episode of The Ramblings. I'm your host, Angelo Roberts. I have today with us Frances Odera Matthews. She is the founder of the Notion Bar. She's a certified Notion consultant. We are going to be in for a super great conversation today, mainly because we are not only international, but we're doing a slightly different format. So how are you doing today, Frances?
Yeah. Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm doing okay. Thank you. Right now it's about to be December, so it definitely feels like wind down season towards the end of the year. But as a freelance, like, I guess as a solopreneur, it's also that like weird ramp up time because you're trying to like squeeze out every last bit
That
of
last bit
business
of the
before like people are like, no, this will come back to January. And you're like, well, I gotta pay my bills in January. So I need the business now.
exactly. Okay, so that actually is you kind of slipped up there. So that brings me to like the very first thing. I actually had this kind of slated for later, so I'll just kind of bring it up now.
Yeah.
How do you officially define yourself in the world of like solopreneur, freelancer, stuff like that? And what made you, well, you said solopreneur. So what
Yeah.
made you land on that versus like being a freelancer? Why do you take to being called or calling yourself a solopreneur?
I think when people use the word freelancer, I feel like there's a slight negative connotation to it. And like maybe you're not doing this like full time and like you're just kind of doing this as a hobby. Whereas to me, solopreneurs, I run Notion Consulting as a business. Like this is my full time. I am an entrepreneur. I am a service provider. I sell products. I provide solutions. So I'm like, this is my life. I'm trying to get myself out of the habit of saying freelancer in order to cure my own imposter syndrome. Like,
Okay, that's a really big thing that people are talking about, especially on Twitter. This whole imposter syndrome. Clearly
yeah,
telling both of us we're two young individuals, especially being in that minority group. A lot of people may
mhm,
not always take us seriously. What
yeah.
was it like building out the Notion bar, especially because I feel like Notion is still a very new thing. When you're dealing with a lot of other small business owners, they might be more of that corporate Word document used to more stiffer kind of stuff. So what was it like when you first kind of started building out the Notion bar, and how'd you get that idea?
So for the past 10 years, I've been in the world of project management, operations. I've always basically been the person to come into a place where there isn't a system and have to make a system. So I got super familiar with the world of Google Sheets and Google Docs, background being creative agencies in e-commerce, Shopify, UX, you name it. And so in that realm, I've worked with a lot of creative thinkers and developed a lot of design thinking skills and learned how to build really good products. And eventually down the line, my last full-time job was a project manager at a Shopify agency. And it kind of got to the point where I was like, there's got to be a better way. Like these spreadsheets are really annoying to work with. They don't talk to each other. I can't click into the things as a page. Like I just need
Right.
this to be better. And so essentially have my workload with Notion. And it got to a point where I realized when there wasn't that element of my job where I was constantly figuring out how to streamline things and build a system and optimize our processes, all that was left of my job as a project manager was chasing people. And I
Mhm.
hated that. And I realized I much prefer building out solutions for people than doing the actual work. And it just so happened that we were going into like 20, well, I don't need to say what 2020 was, but everyone is figuring out how do we get online? I just
Mhm.
rode the wave. I just rode the wave, honestly. And it's been fascinating. I've worked with everyone from do-it-all mums who just need a thing to unscramble their brains to some of the largest like corporations in the world. And it's really fascinating that even some of the largest corporations in the world, they are still stuck on like non-efficient spreadsheets and Word documents and things that just like can be made a lot better by Notion. And it's just been really fascinating to see how a lot of different industries work and learn about their processes. And what I love about Notion the most is that it just really gives you this element of flexibility that other tools give you. Like, I don't know, Google Docs, Google Sheets, Asana, Trello, ClickUp, whatever you use to like track, store, or share your flows. Notion is a space where you can literally build what you need. It is a tool to build your own tool. And so lately I've kind of been redefining what or how I see myself as a Notion consultant. So I'm less of a Notion consultant, but what I've really realized is that I'm a workflow storyteller.
Okay. I want to touch on that really quickly. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I feel like I just shouted. I want to
No.
decibel it down. So one of the biggest things is I realized young really early on, I've realized I'm creative, but I can't draw. Like it's hard for me to
Yeah.
a picture in my head and then draw it. But like I can see a workflow. I
Mhm.
can almost, if you will, design it out, use
Yeah.
something like Notion or all of like these different kinds of software and processes and everything. So I kind of understand what you mean. But there's a lot of competition now in that
Mhm.
productivity space. There's gonna I don't know if you're familiar, Microsoft just dropped
Mhm.
their thing called Loop. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. I did.
What are your thoughts on Microsoft dropping Loop? And actually, one of the big kind of points I want to talk about and land here for a bit is how do you think this is going to change the corporate setting in regards to how corporate does businesses? And do you think small business owners are going to get left behind or catch up? Because a lot of them, like you said, are either using Notion and they're falling behind because it's just really overwhelming, or it's, just I have a process that I've been using that was like pen and paper. Like the dentist guy that I go to for like my dentist, they're like, I don't think there's a like there's a computer in there, but I don't think they use it for scheduling because every time I schedule, I have to talk to the person at the front and they're writing it down in a piece of paper.
Yeah, yeah. No, human behaviors are really difficult to change. Like I use a lot of behavioral psychology in my work just to encourage like good behavior. So it is hard to get people to shift from one thing to another. And I really will say it just depends on the mindset of the person. Like, are they ready to make the change? Sometimes what I see a lot is that people say that they're ready, but they're not. They don't have the mental capacity to take on something new, or they approach this kind of change management or digital transformation in this like state of anxiety where in reality they could be receptive to new information and it just doesn't work. So you got to have those two things before you try and transition to any new system if you think it's going to be better for you. And in terms of Microsoft Loop, the thing about Notion is like, it's sexy. Microsoft isn't sexy.
I'm not a
It's just
fan of
not.
being in Microsoft. No, I did see their rollout, and I guess maybe because of like I don't know who was the designer for like their landing page, but it looks a lot different than like the landing
Okay.
pages for the
Mhm.
rest of the Microsoft products. Like they went full
Mhm.
2023, like dynamic. Hey, it almost really kind of looks like we're catering to the 28 to 38-year-old range of people that are like, hey, we know that a lot of your peers that might be working at startups are going to use Notion. We're using Coda, Asana and stuff like that. We kind of need to fit in where we get in. And they already have like a bunch of productivity stuff. They have people building stuff out in
Mhm.
Word and whatnot. So I think Loop stands the chance to, based on just at least looking at the landing page. Have you seen
Mhm.
like have you a chance
I really
to play around
haven't.
with it?
No, not yet. Not
Okay,
yet.
I'm actually gonna pull it up, and I want to get your opinion on it, only because like
Yeah.
I'm testing this out, right? All right, so
Okay.
this is their landing page, and I was like, I don't like anything Microsoft, but you can't say that this isn't like almost a direct bite from Notion, and
It's literally copy and paste. It's literally copy and paste. I wouldn't be surprised if Notion sued. I'll be real with you here because this
wow,
is
okay,
like
okay, so
I to me, but I would not be surprised.
So you've been in the designer space for a long time now, right? Do you have any information or like knowledge around like copyright UI basis? Like where can software step in to maybe say, hey, you are directly biting versus like the idea of just, hey, obviously there's a market, everyone can do their own version of something.
I mean, I don't have extensive knowledge in that field, but there are very clear things which are Notion's IP. I mean, maybe other apps use it before Notion, but something that Notion is very much known for is the forward slash ability to pull up like blocks, essentially. And
Right.
that's literally what Microsoft has done.
That's exactly what I was saying. So I was looking at this. It looked a whole lot different than like if you were to go to like the Microsoft Office or Microsoft 360 website, which still kind of has like that blocking like look. Like if I went to just Microsoft, if it lets me just do Microsoft.com. See, like it looks like I'm
Oh,
looking at a
yeah.
Staples website.
Yeah, yeah. I think, and so the design and everything might be great, but I think where Loop won't catch on is with the personal side of things. So one of
Mm.
Notion's biggest moats is its community, and they invest a lot in their community for a good reason. So a lot of the time, people will start using Notion in their personal life and then bring that to their business. No one's going to go onto Microsoft Loop and
And
like
just use it personally.
and just use it to plan out a holiday. So while they might be able to target their current enterprise customers who are using things like Teams, and I'm sure there's some interesting integrations there, they're not going to hit the personal target market, especially for like students and things like that, who will essentially become lifelong Notion customers in the same way that it happened with Google Docs and Google Drive, right?
Yes. Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah,
No one
that's
talks about that.
yeah, like when I graduated from college 2018, and so
Mhm.
it was very much in that era of like, why are we doing this group project on Microsoft Word? Like Google Docs exists.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly. Like by the time I think that's where like a lot of things that we're gonna see, right? Like, but you graduated 2018, I graduated like 20 high
okay,
school, dropped out to do this. So I would
yeah.
have done 19, but here we are. One of the things is like as we start like getting older, I don't want to really talk like that, but as we start getting older, as you said, we're legacied into
Yeah.
Google Docs, like school emails and stuff like that. All of those are using that Google ecosystem. So, like you said,
Mm,
a lot of these new people are going to get kind of caught into the Notion ecosystem. How did
mhm.
you find Notion, and what was the very first instance that you like fell in love with? Like, this is
Yeah. So first time I used Notion, I was working as an ops associate for a UX agency in DC. And it basically just became my job to learn Notion and build us a company like intranet. This is back in 2019, and it's obviously like trial by fire because a UX agency is going to have a lot of strong opinions of how things be laid out and work. And so this kind of became a really good builder, I guess, there. And in terms of falling in love with it, two separate occasions. So I had to move back into the UK because I did not win the visa lottery. Anyways, I was applying to a bunch of jobs, and because I'd become so familiar with it, I was like, wait, I could build myself a cool like CV/resume portfolio thing on Notion to set
Mhm.
myself apart. And that's ultimately what got me my job. So that template is still out there and still exists. Like the two jobs that got down to like the final stages for, they were like, wow, this is like so cool. Maybe you can build something for us. And the Shopify agency that I ended up working for were like wowed by it so much that by the time I got to the job, they had already moved stuff onto Notion.
Oh,
Albeit in hindsight, not set up the right way, but anyways, so that was the first time when I realized that you could literally build anything and just make a cool digital interface that looked nice. And the second time I fell in love with it was when I built our client portals in Notion and literally halved my workload because I was like, oh, wait, why are we using these clunky Google Sheets that don't update automatically and aren't user friendly to use? Can't I just build this out in Notion so everyone knows what's happening? I can literally make it a click at the button and just share it with a client. And I was like, oh, wait, I'm onto something here. So yeah, That would be the second time, 100%,
Wow. So
100%.
I think one of my favorite things that when I first started looking at Notion was
Mhm,
that, like you said, I got trapped in from personal life. I was like, hey, I need some way because I was trying to manage like growing a startup, like manage
mhm.
my personal life, trying to just handle everything. And I was like, I like organization. I feel like a lot of people are against organization and even
Yeah,
like some of the most basic forms. Like just sitting down on a Sunday to just say, hey, on a Sunday to just say, hey, what am I going to do? How am I going to handle all of these different things that I have? But also, entrepreneurs probably have it a lot busier than most other people. So
mhm,
I just said, like, hey, I'm going to sit down and try to find something playing with different software. That's kind of like
yeah,
my thing. Like, I found Miro. I loved playing around with that for a little
mhm,
bit. I've loved playing around with Coda. I found that. But like, Notion was the thing that just kind of stuck. Like
yeah,
just consistently was something that I'm like, okay, this is easy. And then, like you said, their community, amazing. I could find templates for
mhm.
almost anything. Now, I see that you are doing a lot of templates. At this particular point, how many templates would you say you created using Notion?
Over 100, and most of them aren't even, like, publicly available like that. So I actually have stopped releasing, um, template in mass form to just like focus on my consulting work. But I have a paid layer in my newsletter community. Little plug, subscribe to the Notion Zeitgeist and join over 2,000 Notion rebels in receiving Notion updates to your inbox every week.
Oh, okay. So I definitely will be diving to that now.
I have paid Notion templates for the paid subscribers in my newsletter community where I call them Notion flips. So I'll find things in
How'd you
pop
come up with that?
culture. It's just stuff that I've always done to practice my Notion skill. And yeah, it's just fun for me. So I'll flip either a really cool article that I find into
What
like
does
a
that
cool
mean? Well, like flip? What is that?
so turning things that you see kind of in the pop cultural zeitgeist into a Notion template.
I saw you also say that. Well, I don't know if that's like a word that's like common, but I don't know what zeitgeist is.
I only learned about it recently and I was just like, oh, that makes so sense. That makes so much sense. So kind of like pop culture is kind of what zeitgeist means. So just things that everyone kind of like talks about or is just like on people's tongues at the moment.
So
That's
like
kind of,
the
yeah.
culture.
Yeah, the culture.
I'm gonna edit this part too. It's
So
the
no, but yeah,
zeitgeist. I can't
yeah.
even pronounce it. It's like why is it gotta be the
Zeitgeist. The zeitgeist.
zeitgeist? The
Yeah.
zeitgeist. Say that
Yeah.
5 times fast. Okay, so what is the zeitgeist, and what are you doing with Notion with this going zeitgeist? Because that was something that you said was Notion is entering zeitgeist.
The
I watched your
Yeah.
TikTok on it. Like,
Oh,
yep.
okay.
Oh, I
Yeah.
said, yeah. So
Thank
I have a little bit of something. Go follow her on TikTok, by the way.
thank
Yeah.
you.
So what is this? What is Notion going zeit? You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. So the TikTok that you're referring to is that I was at Soho House working with some friends. I don't have a Soho House membership, but everyone in my
I was
life
gonna say
does.
like that's
I
a
don't
little
know.
that's a little fancy.
No, I just right now I'm piggybacking off of what's his memberships.
Listen,
Anyways,
I wish I could know someone that I'm piggybacking off at Soho House.
so in London, pretty much everyone has a Soho House membership. It's just the thing. I will probably get one at some point. It's
Is it really that kind of culture? Is it like
yeah, so a lot of the good social events, London has a very dying kind of accessible social scene at the moment because a lot of it is moving inwards towards like private members clubs and there aren't really a lot of good nightclubs left where it's mostly like ticketed club events. So where
mhm.
you're going to see like ex DJ. So a lot of people just go to Soho House where they know like my friends are going to be there. I know it's going to be a good time,
Is it like
essentially.
a common thing for y'all to just be like, yo, we're like, I'm bored. I'm just gonna go hang out at the Soho House. Like,
Very, very, very much so. It's just part of the London culture. But they were talking about this Notion in there, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, this is weird. This is just like a weird nerdy tech bro thing. But like, here we are. So it's becoming, if they're talking about it in Soho House, then it's definitely becoming part of like the mainstream or like entering the zeitgeist. Like it's definitely becoming a thing. And yeah, it's just kind of fascinating to witness it in real time. So yeah, which is why I kind of like named my newsletter The Notion Zeitgeist. So I kind of source all of the cool goings on from within the Notion community across Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, articles that I see. I just curate them for people every week, as well as just like cool, like design related productivity thing. A lot of interior design just to inspire people. Yeah, that's my baby. My newsletter is 100% my baby.
So
And it's
what is Flip? Like, what made you call it Flips?
yeah, so I will take things like the 75 hard challenge, or if someone makes a listicle like 100 best places to visit in Colombia, I will turn that into a Notion database that people can like go and interact with and like sort with and add to. Or if there's a really cool article, I'll turn it into a really cool zine layout. So I took Pharrell's like appointment as like the Louis Vuitton I forget his job title now. Oh my gosh. But like Pharrell becoming like the leading Louis Vuitton, I took that article and I turned that into a really cool, like print inspired zine layout in Notion. So I'll do things like that. It's like where Notion meets the culture.
That is genius. Like, I feel like that, like,
Thank you.
that is like, there are so many different growth hacking ways. And like, I think you're one of those people that I've been following on Twitter for long enough where I've seen like some massive growth in how like you've been doing. Like, you started an entire Twitter community and you were able to like grow that pretty well. You're now doing like the newsletter, you're doing the consulting. How are you balancing everything? It's just you as a entrepreneur. What's your fee structure look like? If someone's listening to this, they obviously can see your stuff. They might want to use you. How are you working with clients? Is it something where you're like, hey, I no longer want to take on more people? How do you limit?
Yeah, so I kind of, in terms of consulting, I work with people or brands or companies at 3 different levels. So the cheapest level is basic coaching. So you'll pay X amount, like a small amount, relatively small amount, but up to 2 hours with me at a time. And like literally we'll just be on the call like we are now and we'll figure out whatever we can figure out. But like that's all the time you get. I'm not going away during revisions or like anything like that. Like you get the time that you pay for. And the second way, which I've literally fallen in love with, are VIP days. So that's the next price tier above. I normally recommend this for like small to mid-sized businesses, maybe up to like 20-ish people, where you'll pre-book 5-hour sprint of my time, similar to the coaching calls. We'll start the call and we'll collaborate on like, this is what needs to happen. This is the issue. Then I'll go work away on it for a few hours and we'll sync up at the end. So it's a really great feedback loop because I can get work done efficiently and you can give me feedback on it efficiently. And then you just book in again when you're ready to do like the next stage or need help with something else. And I do offer bulk discounts if you do want kind of more ongoing Notion support. So you're just like prepaying for VIP days. If we run out of things in your build, I can come in as like a Notion fairy and clean things up for you once a month.
Okay.
And then my last tier is for like bigger companies, like 20 people or above. I call it the Notion Blueprint. And I'm essentially embedded in the team for a few months. I'm going through your processes quite rigorously, like talking to every single department, figuring out what do you do every day? Like what meetings do you have? What software do you use? It's bizarre because a lot of companies have not done this before.
Right. They don't have a record of what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Literally. So I literally sit down with everyone and like, what are you doing? And then reverse engineer that into Notion.
Oh, wow. So when did you realize, because I love when I talk with like these like business owners that are in like these niches where they've built businesses on top of things like consulting with Notion. When did you realize that this was something that you could do full time? Like, hey, I can go branch out and be a Notion consultant and that's how I'm going to make my living.
So it was probably beginning of 2021. It was timing, really. I'd reached the point where I said I'd halved my workload. And so work was becoming kind of like boring for me. And all that was left was annoying clients. And so I was like, I don't love this anymore. I want to challenge myself. I do really like building the workflows. And it just so happened that Notion was taking off and there was a lot of demand growing for my business. And I was at a point where I was like, I don't have any dependence, anything holding me down. I'm just going to take a leap And if it works, it works. And for now, it's working. Maybe one day I'll go back into a job. Like I'm open to that. But yeah, just take the leap and it's up.
Good old leap of faith.
Yep.
Okay. So we have some questions from people. I guess the audience questions. I almost said questions from readers. Oh, that's how unique 97, like 96 are, because it's like you're able to just say, hey, I saw the Ask Jeeves wave. I saw
Yeah.
questions from readers because there was a newspaper, Sunday Funny. Oh, I recently had to explain to my mom what a meme was.
Oh.
And like, cause she just, my mom's like a little bit older. She had me cause I'm it's
Yeah,
just
same. Yeah.
so she didn't know what a meme was. And so I had to be like, hey, do you remember like when you would get like the newspaper and you would see like a political comic strip and it would just be one panel and it's like in front of like the president or something? That's
Yeah.
the me with everything.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, okay. So like, yeah. Anyway, so we have some questions from the audience.
Love
Let's toss these up. What are your favorite Notion tips, hacks, and your favorite template?
My favorite Notion tip would be use button. So Notion has a buttons feature that lets you do a bunch of different things. Like you can instantly add things to new pages or edit pages elsewhere in Notion based on certain conditions, or even like open pages out on the page in front of you so you don't have to leave the page. Like there are a lot of cool like time-saving things you can do with buttons, and they look cool in your Notion. In terms of template, I'm gonna have to plug my own each year. So I said I stopped releasing a lot of templates, but each year I'm still dedicated to releasing my journal called the Happiness Spark. And this is a social experiment a few years ago, and it's now kind of turned into a cult, like thousands of people. So back in 2021, I was like, oh, what if I made a journal, but in it you could open up self-care tips from people across the world. And so people
like a
yeah.
Spotify wrap for your mental health for the year.
Yeah, literally. And so it's that mixed with like a devotional in that sense. So like you'll open up, it's pre-filled and pre-connected for the days, match up to the months and the quarters and the years. And so you can see how your like mood and like sleep is progressing across the year. But also like you'll open up an entry on a Tuesday and it will include a tip from someone who submitted it into the journal to be featured. And so each year I've gained about like 50 new entries. So now there are like 200 wellness tips from people around the world in this journal.
Oh my gosh.
And it's super cool. It's super cool. And it's great to see each year I switch up the design a bit to include any new Notion features. So it's easier to use continuously and looks better based on the feedback that people also submit in. And there's a chat box in it. So people in the journal community can like chat. It's really cool. I'm very proud of it. I don't think there are any Notion templates out there like it at the moment. I'm just very bad at promoting. But like still thousands of people sign up because of the email list.
Right. Oh, okay. So I want to ask my own personal question, and this is not going to be from the list. You seem to be very good at community growth and curation. Is that a skill that you feel that you've been honing your whole life? Is it something that comes natural to you? Do you like see that as, hey, that's just like my best channel for communication, growth, and what I know how to do for marketing? What is it that you are? It seems like all of your things are community based and community tied.
Thanks. I've reflecting about that. Actually, I've never really like pinpointed that part of myself. I think ultimately it comes from my cultural background. So I'm a full-blown culture kid, heritage-wise West African, but grew up in the UK, but went to university in America, and all my friends were international. So I've always approached life from many different perspectives, and that's just how I roll.
I've never heard that term before. I do a lot of traveling, and I've never heard that term. You said third generation?
Culture kid.
Third culture kid. I said kid.
Yeah.
At first I thought it was like, oh, third generation, but no, culture kid. Then you described you're like multicultural.
Yeah. So I just approach life from a lot of different perspectives, and a lot of the people that I admire a third culture kids in some respect. They just don't really fit into a box. Like Virgil Abloh, Elaine Welteroth. Like I could go on. Yeah.
Okay. So how would you say that has like affected your community growth? Do you feel like you have the ability to just mesh and be everywhere? Like, because it's one thing to, I
Mhm.
guess, assimilate into different tribes and cultures. It's
Mhm.
another thing to be able to then bring them all to you.
Yeah, I think because I've interacted with a lot of different cultures, I'm able to throw in a lot of perspectives into what I do, and it somehow just attracts people organically. It's not super intentional, but I just love, and I'm also just a people person. Like I love getting to know people. So I do spend a lot of time just getting to know people who interact with my stuff and like giving the love because they give my stuff love. And I'm never trying to be anyone else. And I think people appreciate like the authenticity in the stuff that I do. Like I could do all these Twitter growth hacks and like have 100,000 followers and stuff. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like hell to me. Like
Really?
I'm a one woman team. Although I do have an assistant who helps with my course, but I'm a one woman team and I already like it. I think 14,000 followers on Twitter and it's already overwhelming to me. Like I very much value the idea of a lifestyle business and 1,000 true fans, over 100,000 like people who followed you because they commented wave on a post to get a free template. Like that's just not like I think authenticity is a big part of like my vibe and who I am. And it just seems to attract the right people.
That's good. I like how you phrase that. The next question that we have is from an audience member. Key tips to not get stuck in Notion. So I'm
Mhm.
assuming obviously the overwhelmingness of just getting into Notion, or even once you've built everything out, just keeping up with it. What are your tips you say on keeping up and not getting stuck inside Notion?
So first of all, you need to break up your junk food template diet. So I work with a lot of clients and they've just downloaded all of these templates just mainly because it was free and they're like, oh, I'll just add it into the Notion system. And
I'm not
I'm
gonna
a bit
lie. I did that at first. Like, well, I have a whole. I even now I still have like a whole bunch of unused templates. That
yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna get there at some point.
Yeah, like it overwhelms people. So you really want to take it one step at a time. Once you get a template, you need to dissect it and be like, what's useful to me here? What's not useful to me here? Do I already have something similar to this in my system? Why am I trying to why am I trying to track the same thing in two different places? Like maybe there are elements from the new template that you can add to your existing system. Absolutely, like, go ahead and do that, but what you can't do and where I see people get overwhelmed is that they just have, like, 100 templates and they don't even know where they got them from because it was, like, some random free thing, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, it might be useful." And a lot of that customization comes with learning how to become comfortable with Notion, and so the forward slash is your friend because that's all the blocks that you have access to in the system, and where I always see people slip up is they don't realize to customize things. And what I always say is just look for the dot and you'll be okay. Just like look for the like be extra curious, click on every dot you see and it will reveal some kind of menu. Then take it from there. And I do have a great course that goes over kind of like this getting comfortable with with Notion process. You can find it on my website.
Which is listed right here below.
Just take it slow and stop trying to like download 2,000 templates at once and do 2,000 things at once. Like simple is best, honestly.
Love it. All right. Last one question that we're gonna do from the audience is, if you couldn't use Notion, what would you use?
I'd probably still be stuck in Google Docs. I won't lie. I won't lie. Like I get this. Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold you. The Google, not necessarily Google Docs, but they have this thing, the Google Task Board. I
Mhm.
kind of started using that. It's kind of the job. Like it kind of works out a little bit.
Yeah. Like I live and die by my Google Calendar. I'm like shocked people get by without
Without some kind of calendar, something. Listen,
some kind of calendar. Yeah, I know. I'm sure that I think I've played around with the task thing as well, and I was like, this is like I don't hate this. So yeah.
okay. Those are all the questions that we have audience wise. I
Mhm.
kind of want to go into like another different kind of conversation real quick. Last one before we have to head out.
Mm.
Obviously we had that whole Sam Altman open AI fiasco.
Yeah.
That was brutal. He's back in. However, a lot of companies obviously are using AI. Notion, being one of those companies. What is your thoughts on the Notion AI? Because I will say I am not a fan of Notion AI system, actually. In comparison to like either straight just using Chat GPT or even
Mhm.
just in getting the results that I am in Notion, especially because I've been trying out
Mm.
their new questions feature thing. I have like access for the new questions. It just isn't responsive enough in regard to, I don't know if it's like a security feature. So for example, like we have a docs of passwords. So I was like, hey, it's fine. Cause like we have it's a client manager. So it's listed, this page, this is the thing, this is what it
Mhm.
is. Like, hey, find me this password. Cause I was like, simple, can't do it. I'm like, hey, okay. Find me this particular client that we need. Couldn't do it. Now I don't know if it
Mm.
was because that was an early user access mode or like not user access mode, but like it was like
Yeah.
the beta version. But it
Yeah.
just, what are your thoughts? How often
Yeah.
do you use it in your day-to-day work?
First thing I want to address is it's funny that you brought up the Sam Altman situation. I've kind of like learned to stay out of tech billionaires' business because they do not care about us. They're like, these are just a bunch of rich people fighting over themselves. Like, let them sort it out. Um, in terms of Notion AI, depends what you want to use AI for. So I use Notion's AI really with the Notion databases, and I find it works pretty well. So I use Notion AI to help me format links for my newsletter. So I have the Notion web clipper, and maybe I can just find it.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. You have
Yeah.
share capability.
Yeah, let me do it. So, I'm gonna share screen. Okay, so this is the archive that my paid newsletters. So I have an archive that my paid newsletters can access with all of the links that I find for each week's newsletter. Essentially, I have all of this is stuff that's web clipped into Notion using the Save to Notion Google Chrome extension. And essentially, everything is web clipped into Notion. And I have this AI prompt as a custom. I'm showing this from the wrong account. Thank God. Right. So I have this AI prompt property where I need this page title here, which is basically what the hot link is going to be called in my newsletter, to be formatted with the web page that it was clicked from as a hyperlink, and also put an appropriate behind it. This process was so manual and so annoying.
I
And
was
so I
gonna
was
ask,
like,
like, how did you set that up? Did you have to use like a function?
yeah, so prompt that I'm using, if I get into edit property, is create a version of the title of this page using the URL. Begin with a relevant emoji, not the link emoji, because I found that it was like using
Defaulting.
that a lot. Yeah. Based on the content of the title, only include the text I've requested, no further description. And it's great. So instead of like a 1-minute job, it's already ready for me. And if I don't like the emoji, I can just hit the update button a few times, or if it comes out a bit funky, and now I can just copy and paste this straight into my newsletter instead of spending 90 seconds formatting it. That's what I love Nation AI for, personally.
Oh, that's genius, actually.
So
You're using it in like a lot of like little saving ways. What have
yeah.
you seen is like your favorite use case?
Favorite use case. Me, it's personally this one. Like I wrote and I built a Notion template with a little while ago where there was a AI summary property where, like if it was a company name, AI would spit out a summary of what that company is, essentially. So it's great in the database capacity. It's really, really powerful in the database capacity if you want AI to work within the database ecosystem you've built. if you're just trying to like plan out things, like, I don't know, give me 10 work ideas and turn this into a script. Notion AI is fine at that, but like GPT is probably going to be a bit more advanced, essentially.
Okay. Now I'm just thinking because I just had like a whole bunch of different things. When you're filling these out, is it something that like you're doing in your free time, or do you consider this also like part of like your work, or is this something that you have to dedicate like, hey, I'm gonna kind of play around with the new features that Notion releases?
So doing the newsletter has actually been a way to force me to keep up with Notion news. And by documenting it each week, so every time there's a new piece of news, I'll be like, oh, what's this thing? Someone's made some content about it. Let me watch the content, essentially. So it is a structured part of my time, and pretty much essential to being a good Notion consultant is learning how to use the new tools within Notion. You can't really do it otherwise. And there
Okay.
are so many micro updates that happen that a lot of people miss. And so you've got to keep up with those.
Okay. Now this is a personal thing. Do you happen to have a course on function
On like formulas?
formulas? I'm thinking Excel.
No,
Do you have a course on function?
I do not, sadly. I'm still learning Excel. I can do the basic stuff. Basic to intermediate is where I hang out.
Okay.
But the really advanced stuff, like you need to be some kind of to handle that. And that's just not my bag.
I thought
I can
I thought it was neat. I'm
n-
like, is this like for the people that
no.
were really good at formulas in Excel? Because I'm like,
Yeah,
this is an entire thing that I'm like finding harder than what I expected.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, lots of people don't need formulas. They're just doing it to be fancy. Like, I think one way I become a good at Notion is by figuring out ways to achieve client outcomes with formulas as much as possible, just by being a little bit clever with the views or the tags that we're using.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that goes back to the whole thing about people over engineering their workspaces and making it complicated just because they get overwhelmed with all this information that in reality, they just like don't care about. It's just an extra step. Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So one of the things that we do before we officially have to get people out of here,
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a send off question that we usually ask other people, right? What was the hardest and most painful part of growing the Notion bar?
Learning sale, like, honestly, like, I'm almost too laid back of a person, and I don't really have that, like, I don't innately have that aggressive business spirit in me, and so learning how to kind of, like, sell myself
Mm.
properly, I would say 100%, and, like, position myself properly. I'm still in the process of doing that. Yeah.
Check out the previous episode I did. We were just talking about, I was just talking to Stan Peak about sales stuff. So I think that'll
Oh,
be a really good episode. So now I think this is probably going to be your favorite part of the podcast. Give us a super shameless plug. Where can we find all of your work? Tell people to sign up for the newsletter 1,000 times over. Let's get that going.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me here today. If you want to follow my work, you can head to thenotionbar.com where you will find me, my links to all my social media, TikTok, Twitter, going really hard on LinkedIn right now. So if you are a LinkedIn baddie or bro, you can find me there. And in terms of my newsletter, the Notion Zeitgeist, if you're trying to keep up with Notion news and community, 100% subscribe. And you also see cool things that people are doing in my course each week. So yeah, thank you for having me.
I think that's absolutely awesome. Let's definitely connect on Zoom. LinkedIn. I don't think I have you. So
Okay,
let's definitely
cool.
do it. I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn stuff lately as well. So just
Dope.
that came to my mind. So
Awesome.
yeah, I will be talking with you. It was great to have you.
Love
Ramblers,
that.
we are signing off.
Awesome. Thank you. This has been great.
Hey, Ramblers, that's it. Podcast is over. Don't leave yet, though. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, and follow us on YouTube at OffSource HQ. We'll see you next time.